Hello everybody, my name is Brandon. Welcome back to Cinefessions, where we talk all things media. So I'm here today with another Blu-ray review, and this time out, we are talking about one brand new release here just this week. This is called Till Death, and this one is directed by S.K. Dale, actually making his directorial debut here with this one, his feature-length debut here. So I love watching movies from first-time directors because it always gets me excited. If I enjoy it, it gets me excited for the future of that director. So yeah, we'll talk about if I'm excited or not as we go through this, but this is another just great example of marketing done right. Something that was like felt made for me. My buddy ended up sending me a text message this morning, and it had a real brief synopsis of this, and it sounded really cool. So I decided, you know what, let's run out. It's only like $13.99 right now at Best Buy. Let's run out and grab it. So that's what I ended up doing, and completely out of character. I got home, I opened it, and I popped it in my player, which I never do. I usually always have them sitting down here for my next haul video, and then I'll eventually get around to them. But this one, I had to check out and see what it was all about. Megan Fox stars in this one, and it's funny because her husband in this is actually played by, I think you would say his first name is Ian Mackin, who actually played Doc in Resident Evil: The Final Chapter, which I did a complete series review on Resident Evil, so I just talked about that here on the channel recently. So that was a little fun connection for me. But yeah, so this was an interesting movie that I'm excited to talk about. So we're going to talk about the movie itself, which is like a thriller. I wouldn't call it a horror. It's like a home invasion thriller, I guess. But we'll talk about the movie. Then we'll talk about the Blu-ray disc itself, which honestly, there's not a ton to talk about there. But then I'll give you my final thoughts, all in the hope that it gives you a more well-informed opinion on whether this movie is for you or not. So I am really excited to talk about this one. And if you guys do enjoy this video, please give it a like down below. That really does help me out. But with that said, let's not waste any more time at all. Let's dive right into my Blu-ray review of Till Death. If you guys have been around the channel long enough, you know that it doesn't take a whole lot to get me interested in a movie, but for me to see like 2 sentences and then want to run out and grab it that same day, I feel like that's a little bit more rare, but that's exactly what happened here with Till Death. So in this one, we are following Megan Fox's character, Emma. She is in a relationship with Mark, who's played by the aforementioned Ian Mackin, and they are clearly going through problems. It's a failing marriage at this point, but they are trying to celebrate their 11th wedding anniversary. We actually find out in the opening minutes that Emma is cheating on her husband. She's having an affair with an employee of her husband, we find out very early on. That's not really a spoiler at all. And so from there, they trying to make things better as best he can. Mark ends up taking Emma out to their lakeside home. And so it's a surprise. She has no idea it's going to happen. She doesn't expect it at all. And it's kind of weird given their current situation. But he takes her out there and has this whole romantic setup going, and eventually he apologizes for his recent behavior, and he wants to make things better. And then we go to the next morning instantly, and from there Emma wakes up, and all of a sudden she realizes she's handcuffed to her husband. And so she's trying to figure out what the heck is going on. She says his name a few times, and he says something to her, and then all of a sudden he pulls out a gun and he kills himself right in front of her. And so now she is tasked with trying to survive in this house with no sharp weapons, no phone service at all, kind of snowed in a little bit as well, completely secluded with this body she is now dragging of her dead husband. And so it picks up from there, and I guess I'll leave it there. That's what you would get basically from the back of the box here, so I'll kind of stop there. But it is a really interesting premise, and the whole thing ends up being like this thriller mixed with a home invasion horror movie almost, but it's done in such an interesting way that I think for me, it was worth my time. So what I enjoyed most about Till Death has to be Megan Fox's performance. I think she does a really good job in this movie. Now, she's not, I'm going to put this down. Now, she's not it takes a while, I should say, for her to get going, because in the beginning, her character is incredibly one note. And I just kept thinking, like, is this going to get better? Because her performance was really flat. But it does. As the action picks up, I think she does a really good job with it. Now, some people might complain that the choices she makes are not, are not appropriate for the situation. But given her background, because we learned that she was attacked 11 years prior, or I don't know, somewhere around there, 11, 12 years prior, that's actually how she ended up meeting her husband. And so she was attacked by somebody and like stabbed and left for dead, essentially. And so she's kind of been through the ringer at this point in her life. And so she clearly is not in love with her husband at all. And so I feel like just the way she handles the situation, it made sense to me. I didn't question it at all. I was just kind of going with it. And I'll say that you really just have to turn off your brain, because there are a lot of things in this that either don't make sense, are just over the top ridiculous, or might be silly if you're kind of trying to examine it a little too much. But if you're willing to suspend your disbelief enough for this 89 minutes or whatever it is, then I think there's something to enjoy here. For example, at one point she ends up getting dressed, and how she's, handcuffed at that point. So how would you get a shirt on if you're handcuffed? Like, those are small things that really don't have much effect on the plot. So I could just let it go. I didn't really think about it until after the fact, to be honest with you. And so little things like that are definitely going to crop up. So if those things bother you, then you might not want to waste your time with this. But if you are willing to kind of overcome those or just deal with those, then I think there's something here worth watching. What's really cool about this movie is just how unexpected some of the violence is, and it's really brutal. Now, mind you, this is not an over-the-top movie like Saw or, something from like the torture genre at all, but it is definitely violent and brutal at points. Like the aforementioned suicide is just gross, and the special effects work on it is excellent. And then there are some other moments in there of like brutal violence that are just like I said, unexpected. And I think those are the most effective for me, is when I don't see it coming, or I don't see like what the action would be coming. I love those moments, and that happens a handful of times in this movie. So again, if you can get over the fact that like, how do these, how is this one woman dragging this, 175-pound man around going to escape this situation, then I think there's, a fun movie to be had here. This movie reminded me a lot of Gerald's Game, but I thought it was done better, because honestly, I didn't love Gerald's Game. I think the idea is cool with Gerald's Game, but there were just some things in there that I really couldn't get over and I just didn't like. So if you thought Gerald's Game was too boring because it was only one location, one bed, well, this one at least expands it to the house and the surrounding area. So you get kind of Gerald's Game on a bigger level, which is always cool. But it is reminiscent of that same plot. Obviously, it's the Stephen King novel that it's based off of, but yeah, it's similar vibes, I'll say. I mentioned earlier that this was SK Dale's feature debut, and I am really excited for what else they have in store, because I thought they did an excellent job with this one. There are some shots in here that I think are pretty memorable. I can think of one offhand where the camera's focused on one of the actors, and then it kind of pans completely upside down to show the landscape, and it just opens to this vast nothingness, and it gives you the immediate impression of, where can they run? What can they do? And I think that's awesome for a movie like this, where it is supposed to be confined and kept to a small space. And I think SK Dale does make the best of that closed space. They also do some things, though, with like some city shooting, some driving scenes that I think look really cool. The opening credit scene looks awesome. Is it like the camera travels over New York City at night? It's just a beautiful shot. So I think there are some really notable shots in here. And so that, mixed with the whole premise that is brought up here and how it's handled, it gets me really excited to see what else SK Dale has in store for us. I hope they continue to make films in this vein. I would love, more home invasion thrillers. If they go straight horror, that would be awesome as well. I'm just really interested to see what comes next. This is definitely one of those movies that just keeps piling on bad situations for our main character, but it's necessary given what this movie is, because it basically, the entire thing is will Megan Fox's character live or will they die? That's essentially the entire premise. And so it's important that there are obstacles in the way. Now, did it get a little ridiculous at the end? Maybe, yes. Like, I would understand an argument saying that it was too much, but for me, I was so in at that point that I was just going with it. I think what also grabbed me with this movie was the tension that SK SD King was able to find. There are moments of silence in this that work so well because basically it's a human being hunted. And so it's creepy, it's incredibly tense, and it just works really, really well. And that's what really brought me into the movie and just kept me there. And at the edge of my seat, I found myself holding my breath at points because I wanted to know, what would happen next. So yes, I completely recognize that Till Death is not a perfect movie by any stretch of the imagination, but I picked this movie up for $14 on release day. So my expectations were not very high going in, and it's a direct-to-video release. And so again, my expectations were really low, and it met my expectations. It exceeded them a little bit, to be frank. Megan Fox, I think, does a really good job with this, and I love Megan Fox ever since Transformers. Of course, I've loved Megan Fox. Like, she's awesome. And she is just a badass in this role. She handles it exceptionally well at points, especially when it comes to the action. Again, I thought she did an excellent job with the acting throughout, but it might rub some people the wrong way, and I would understand that. But for me, I thought she was good, and she handled these kind of moments where you need to stand up and take a stand. She handled those moments really well, like we would have seen in some other films like this. So I love that aspect of it. There are some other supporting characters in here, which I think do an amazing job as well. There is a brother duo in this, which I think are really good together. They have really good chemistry. That's one thing I do need to mention is that from the opening, 15 minutes or whatever it is, before we actually get to the lake house, there is zero chemistry between our two main characters, between Emma and Mark. And I don't mean that in a negative way. It is uncomfortable watching these two be in the same room together as I was watching it. And that's exactly how it should be. They are in a loveless marriage, and it has to be that way to get to our next points here. And so I thought that was really well done by both of the actors and the director to kind of recognize that and drive the actors towards that. So just another thing I enjoyed about this. But again, I know there are a lot of flaws here that I kind of am overlooking because I had fun with the movie. It was tense. It was action-packed at points. It definitely moves slow. Maybe the first half of the movie might be a little bit too slow for some, but I enjoy that. The beginning reminded me a bit of The Strangers. If you guys have seen that one, it almost feels like a character study between this married couple at the start of the movie, and that's what The Strangers is as well. And so it reminded me a little bit of that, which I love The Strangers, so of course I liked what this one was doing as well. So I ended up giving Till Death from 2021 3.5 out of 5 stars. So now let's talk about this physical Blu-ray release itself. And one thing I just noticed, and I have to point it out, is it mentions that they're on their 10th wedding anniversary, and that is just simply not true. And it's relevant to the movie, I'll say that. And so I think that's interesting that the back of the box has that incorrect, but hey, it is what it is. And this one was actually released by Screen Media, which, if you guys are dollar store hunters like me, you know that Screen Media has a lot of movies at the Dollar Tree. So I don't know if this one will eventually end up there, but I'm okay that I spent $14 for it. So on the Blu-ray disc itself, you do have a 5.1 surround sound option, and I thought the picture looked really good. There were just really cool moments where the cinematography took over, like I mentioned earlier. That night scene, the opening flying over New York City at night looked beautiful. The open shots of this wide open white snow looked really great. I had no issues at all with the sound or with the picture quality on this disc. On the audio side of things, the only thing I'll mention is that I felt that at points the characters were almost whispering too much, that I was losing it a bit on my front speaker. But then if I turned it up, then when there was action sequences, which weren't a ton that were rocking my house, mind you, but when there were, those were super loud. And so I thought maybe that mixing could have been done a little bit better, but that is so minor. And frankly, it might be my setup versus the actual disc itself. But other than that, I didn't have a problem with it. And it was only those moments where the characters were really quiet. Otherwise, if they were talking normal, I didn't have an issue hearing them at all. And there were some moments where you could feel that full surround sound effect, but it is few and far between. You're not picking this up for the audio quality. The visuals, though, I do think look really good. And so for the AV side of things, I think this is a perfectly acceptable disc. I will give it a 4 out of 5. As for the special features on this disc, interestingly enough, they don't advertise anything on the back here, so I thought this was completely bare bones. But when you pop it in, there is a bonus feature on there. It is a making of featurette. It is only 6 minutes long, and it is incredibly basic. It's exactly what you would expect something like this to be. Does not really dive deep into anything at all, so is it worth it? Probably not. So this is a pretty bare bones release with that only that one special feature. I would have loved like a commentary track from the director or something like that, but unfortunately that's not the case with this one. So for special features, I'm gonna have to go ahead and give this a 1.5 out of 5, just because there's virtually nothing here other than a 6-minute featurette, which doesn't really tell you too much about the making of this movie. You know, at the end of the day, I am happy to have Till Death in my physical media collection, but is this going to be for everybody? Definitely not. I just happen to love home invasion thrillers. That's one of my favorite subgenres of horror. I thought the idea of Megan Fox being chained to her dead husband, trying to survive, was really interesting. And there's just a little bit more to this that I've not really talked about intentionally, because I want to leave those surprises for you if you decide to watch this. But this might be one that is better served streaming. So if you hold off maybe a few weeks, a month, whatever it is, you'll probably end up seeing this on some streaming service somewhere. Or, as I mentioned, it's a screen media. Maybe it'll be at the Dollar Tree in a few months. I have no idea. But yeah, so this is one that the Blu-ray probably is not going to be one that many people are going to be interested in for $14. If you can get this on sale for $7, $8, yeah, pick it up. See if it's something that you enjoy. If you like Megan Fox, I think it's worth it for her alone. She does a great job in this. But yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and give Till Death Blu-ray overall 3 out of 5 stars. All right, guys, so those were my thoughts on Till Death, but I want to hear from you guys down in the comments below. Is this a movie that you've seen? And if you did you love it? Did you hate it? Is this one that you may want to go check out now? Let me know what your thoughts are down in those comments below. I love when you guys leave comments down there, so thanks so much for all of that support. As always, if you guys did enjoy this video, please give it a like down below. That really does help me out. And like I always say, I don't just talk movies, I talk all things media, be it books, movies, video games, graphic novels. If it's media related, I'm interested in it, and if you are too, you might consider subscribing. Alright guys, so that's going to do it for today. I just want to say thank you all so much for watching, and I want to encourage you to consume some media today. I'll catch you next time.